Now this is the brand new Moza 25 Newton meters R25 Ultra True Torque DD wheelbase. It's available now for $899. That means it competes with the Simucube 2 Pro, the Simucube 3s, the Fanatec Podium DDs, the Asetek Invictas, the SimMagic Alpha Evos, and many more besides. But is it worth your money? Well, in this video, I'm going to let you know, and I have a pretty unique perspective on this, and I think it's important to say it. So I have been a karter for many years. I have won karting championships. I have done what's known as extreme 60 races where you're karting for 60 minutes straight, plenty of endurance races as well. So I'm used to dealing with direct forces in a go-kart. I've also driven plenty of sports cars and supercars and even GT cars on track at Silverstone, Mazda Racing in Spain, and even the Ferrari 488 GT in America. So I'm used to driving real cars on tracks as well. And also, and maybe most importantly, I'm probably the only YouTuber who's actually been using the R16 almost day in, day out for a year. It's been on my rig for a year. You can see in my videos I'm using the Moza R16. So I'm really well placed to let you know any differences between the R16, any real differences, and anything which is just marketing speak. Now, obviously, go and watch all the reviews, but I just want to let you know why I think I have a unique perspective and it's worth saying. Now, this is a review unit provided by Moza Racing, but they have not sponsored this video. They have not seen this video. They don't know what I'm going to say. They haven't told me to say anything. I'm certainly not reading for any kind of script. I'm just giving you my honest impressions. I've been using this wheelbase in multiple sims and I'm worried about it. So let's get into it. Now, Moza say this is their next gen wheelbase. They're also coming out with an R21 as well. They say it has zero cogging. It's got a 21-bit encoder. It has next-gen features when it comes to the force feedback, telemetry as well. There's some buzzwords mixed in there. There's some things that actually make a difference as well. And I found the differences to be quite pronounced between different sims. I had a real epiphany moment with this wheelbase. I had one of the best ever experiences I've had in sim racing that's going to connect my experience of real-world karting and driving and sim racing. I'm getting onto it. But like I said, I also have a concern. Just before I go into that, if you do decide to buy any products from any sim racing companies, it always helps me out if you use my affiliate codes. Some of them are discount codes as well. So go check them out in the description or go to www.simracingdiscounts.com. Now, my concern with this wheelbase is that it doesn't come with an emergency stop. It has on the back of it a port for an e-stop, but it doesn't come in the box with an emergency stop. And I feel like it's my duty to say in this video, I am worried that as we get to this level of wheelbase and as accessible brands like Moza are starting to exist here, I'm really worried we're going to see injuries. If you set up this wheelbase incorrectly, I think it can injure you. And that's the same with the Simucube 2 Pros. That's the same with any 25 Nm wheelbases. But I just feel like this could be a very popular wheelbase. And I feel like people might be buying it who've been on something like an R9 or maybe an R16 before. But this to me gives a very different level of torque that if you don't set it up correctly, you know, your wrist can only take so much basically. Not just your wrist, but also your elbows here. Also when you're tensing too much to try and control the torque. So we're going to get into settings. I'm going to give you hopefully some invaluable guidance. Firstly, before we get into the ease of use and the comfort and the mounting, etc., let's do some comparisons between other products. So I've got some stats in front of me. The Simucube 3 Pro, so the 25 Nm wheelbase from Simucube, is going to be $1,600. That's $900 versus $1,600. The Asetek Invicta, which has 27 Nm, is about $1,300. So again, we're talking about $400 more. We don't know how much the Fanatec Podium DD is going to cost, but I'll be astonished if it's the same price or less than this. I think it's going to be more expensive. Now, some of these other wheelbases do have better encoders. The Simucube 3 Pro has a 23-bit encoder. The Asetek Invicta has a 22-bit encoder. Remember, the Moza R25 Ultra only has a 21-bit encoder, but I'm not sure how important that is. When I went to SimLab and spoke with Richard, who's the founder and CEO of SimLab, he said actually the encoder bits now are just kind of irrelevant. We're already at the level of detail that we need to be at. And that's going to be a common theme with me reviewing wheelbase in the future, is kind of the marginal gains now, really in marginal gains territory. Now, in terms of the quick release, you can see that it's a standard Moza quick release. So it fits all of your existing Moza rims, which is great. It also comes with an external power supply. We're starting to see a change here in the market because the SimLab DD is going to come with an internal power supply. it also has a USB-B port as well, not a USB-C port. So a lot of the other wheelbases now come with USB-C. The Simucube 3 stuff is now really going through Ethernet. They're trying to go into a new standard. But I just thought you let you know, it's kind of like, it's not revolutionary on the back here in the bunda, so to speak. It's kind of old school from Moza. And again, I reckon that's to keep the cost down. Now, I will do a separate unboxing video, so make sure to subscribe if you want to see that. And just subscribe generally if you want to help me out. It's you guys and girls that make this possible. So when it comes to ease of mounting, you can see here we have screw holes on the side, both sides. We have screws in the front for front mounting, and we have screws in the bottom. Now for me, I was just able to mount in the bottom. It fit on my Indigo Lime Genius rig. Remember the rig we reviewed and we said it's Genius? Now they call it the Genius rig. So it just fits on that. One of the easiest wheelbases I've had recently to fit. No messing around with T-slot, not having to front mount it. Now there might be question marks here about whether you should be front mounting this because of the power of the wheelbase. For example, the Simucube 2 Pro, you can only front mount. I was only able to front mount this, but this one you have multiple mounting options. Now let's talk about the peak torque of 25 Newton meters and what that means in practice, okay? So I want to be super clear. I don't think you should ever be running this at 100% in Moza Pit House and 100% in Sim. I will go out and I will say that, and I don't care if no one else says it. I don't think you should be doing that. And I really strongly recommend that you don't buy this, put it on your rig, set it 100%, put it 100% in game, and off you drive. I think that is bad news territory. I'm not joking here. This isn't me doing some banter. Like, I'm actually, for once, I think it's the only time ever on this channel I've been really serious. I really don't want people to get injured when dealing with wheelbase at this level. So this is what I do with 25 Newton meters. Now, I set it 100% in Moza Pit House. So I leave it at 100%, so I'm getting the full 25 Newton meters. And then in the sim, I turn it down. So you'll see my stats on screen now. I believe in Le Mans Ultimate, I was running about 30%, maybe the same in Assist Course Evo as well. iRacing was difficult, and I wasn't impressed by iRacing when I was testing the force feedback here. And that's from someone who really generally likes iRacing. Now, in Le Mans Ultimate, when I turned this down to 30%, it was an unbelievable feeling. I made a couple of other adjustments. So in Moza Pit House, I reduced the dampers to give that raw feeling that you know I like. And I also changed a little bit the force feedback effect curve to give me more of that ABS and the curb sensation at about 160 kilometers an hour, I think it said. And that gave me an unbelievable experience. Now, this is where I'm going to talk about my experience as being a racing driver in karting and also driving racing cars. When you're driving a racing car with power steering, okay, when you're turning into a corner, you are always, in my experience, able to give a bit more. Okay? Now, if you give too much, this is where the traction control should kick in. Or if you don't have traction control, this is where you might initiate a spin. Okay? But you always are able, in my experience, to give more steering lock with power steering. Okay? The issue we have with wheelbases these days is that some of the sims, it's a combination between sim and wheelbase. And it's actually probably more on the sim side. And this is what I experienced in iRacing, actually. When you set up this 25 Newton meter wheelbase in iRacing to have a normal sensation when you're driving through high-speed corners, where we're trying to, let's be really honest, we're trying to, in an unrealistic sense the load of the tyres and also kind of the G-forces through the steering shaft. That's completely unrealistic. In a real car, you don't get you're getting the G-forces and feeling the load in a completely different way that we don't have in the sim. But in the sim, we feel it through the steering shaft. Now, when you get that dialed in for high-speed corners, in iRacing, I had a massive problem. While we're going to hairpins or tight corners, I'd turn in, I'd realise I need a little bit more, but it's so hard now to turn the wheel. My muscles are tensing, and I don't have fine motor control to actually get that finesse that I need in the corner. Think of the last couple of corners at Silverstone, when you're really trying to get as close as possible to those sausage curbs, and you just kind of need to keep turning sometimes to get there because you want to open up the next bit of the corner. So I wasn't able to do that in iRacing. However, in Le Mans Ultimate, in the settings I had, it was absolutely fantastic. I was able to, at Monza, at turn 1, if I needed to turn a little bit more, I had more to turn in. Now, that's going to be a compromise because I'm probably going to understeer a little bit because I'm in the braking zone, I've carried too much speed, I'm missing my apex, but at least I have the option to try and manipulate the car in another way, as opposed to not even being able to turn the wheel with fine motor control. So that is something about different sims translating what it's like to be on the limit, some people say, but I would say when you're turning in the car on load. So everyone wants a piece of me right now. So, but don't worry, you've got me, because it's a very important review. Now, when I do karting, and like I said, I've done a lot of 60-minute karting races in Club 100. You might have heard of Club 100, Jimmy Broadbent, Super GT. We've all done it. I've done Club 100 on and off for, I think, maybe like a decade now. That, when you're turning in, there's no power steering, and near the end of a 60-minute race, I'm struggling to turn in. Okay? So I'm telling you, when I'm 60 minutes in, I'm like, oh, I can't really turn in anymore. There's no power steering, and my arms are tired. So I don't want that sensation in a GT car. When I'm in a GT car, I want to be able to turn more. Now, with this R25 from Moza, like I said, in Le Mans Ultimate, have a look at my settings. I had an unbelievably good setup. At Monza, I was able to just be able to get that extra rotation if I needed to, and that gave me some learnings for the next time I approach that corner that I need to sacrifice a little bit of speed earlier, but it gave me some finesse. It was also incredible running over the curbs, and this is one of the new features of the R25 Ultra over the R16 I can speak very confidently about, is I have a lot more detail over curbs. When I go over curbs in the R16, it's very kind of brutish. Like, you can have big forces for sure, but it's very brutish. In the R25, when you go over these sawtooth curves, and I've been to circuits, sometimes I'm still shocked by how aggressive these curbs are in real life. You can feel the oscillation being so high frequency. In fact, when you're going over these curbs at speed, it's almost shockingly high frequency. And that's something you just don't get on the R16. I would say it's an even better sensation than on my Simucube 2 Pro. That's going to be a big statement, but I feel like the Simucube 2 Pro has a little bit of like a haptic-y, like echoey element to it, whereas the R25 really does feel like it's able to hit these sawtooth curves like this, and it feels like it's so high frequency. I hope that's going to be a consistent thing that you get from impressions of the R25, because it was certainly my impression. So Le Mans Ultimate, absolutely fantastic experience, much better than iRacing. My iRacing experience, I had to make a modification. Running the wheelbase at 25 Newton meters and then adjusting it down in iRacing, I just couldn't get a nice sweet spot that was good at high speed and low speed. I could get it decent at high speed, but it was too hard at low speed. So the workaround I was able to do was in the Moza Pithouse software. There's a maximum torque. That's not the force feedback strength. I kept the force feedback strength at 100%, but then my maximum torque I lowered to 12.5, so 50%. And that got me into a little bit of a sweet spot, but it was noticeable that the curbs were not as satisfying as in Le Mans Ultimate, and it didn't feel like I had this dynamic range I had in Le Mans Ultimate. It felt like I was kind of capping things. So I was a bit disappointed by the iRacing force feedback experience, and iRacing is normally my go-to sim when I'm testing equipment. Stuff just works on iRacing. On Le Mans Ultimate, sometimes it doesn't, but this time Le Mans Ultimate the winner. Now, the real epiphany moment I mentioned earlier, and this is game changing. Okay, this is one of the best experiences I've ever had in sim racing, and it really reminded me of both my karting and driving in real life. And this was in Asetek Corsa Evo. I drove the Alpine at Suzuka in Asetek Corsa Evo, and I had some incredible moments where I could really feel the tyres grip better than I've ever felt in any sim anywhere before. And I've been to expos and been on crazy $200,000 sims. This was better than that. The way to explain it is, when I go karting, and so I'm not talking about my butt here, I won karting championships. There's a technique you do in karting where you aggressively turn the kart in to get it rotated, and then you're sort of unwinding the steering wheel gently on power. So you end up counter steering on the power. It's hard to explain, but you turn in and then you kind of like counter steering on the power like that, because you do that aggressive turn and then you're going like that. I was able to do the same thing in Asetek Corsa Evo in this Alpine. I was able to feel this almost ridge of the tyre's grip, and I think it might even come through in the footage, because I was able to just ride this grip around turn 1 at Suzuka, and also some of the other S's. It was an amazing, the best combination I could have done to try this out. And I think that's possibly due to the sustained load that these new generation of wheelbases can do. It's not just the R25, that's also any other wheelbase probably that's able to sustain these. So when we talk about the difference between peak Newton meters and sustained, because I could just sustain this level of grip around the corners, it was really incredible. It's going to be hard to translate. The footage will be there, but that was a moment for me, was like, yeah, I'm not going to go back to the R16. And it's a valid question, because let's say I have the choice between a cheaper R16 or a more expensive R25 Ultra. Given that I'm running the force feedback at 30%, and I was running it, I think, again at 30% in Asetek Evo, so I'm running it well under 25, well under 16. The obvious answer is, well, why pay more for the 25? Well, that was a difference. Even the curbs, I can kind of live without the better sensation on curbs, because that's more like an enjoyable sensation rather than something that's going to make me be faster. But I felt like this, actually, I could actually be faster and understand driving these cars. And I was so impressed by Asetek Evo. And remember, I've been driving Asetek Evo since launch on the R16, on the LOGITECH, on a load of wheelbases. And this is by far the best experience I've had. And this might be something that's common to these next-gen wheelbases that are sustaining a load of torque and have this, you know, better slew rates and zero cogging, etc. But that was something I really experienced in this over the R16. So the big question is, should you buy it? Now, no one needs a 25 Newton meter wheelbase. Something like the Logitech RS50 or the Moza R9, they're going to give you enough force to be able to drive these cars. It's not like driving on, for example, I've got the Turtle Beach 3.2 Newton meter, I think. I don't think that's enough. I was in ACC. I don't think that's enough really to drive GT cars. With a R9 or a RS50, you're going to have enough. What this gives you is like another level of detail, and that's a bit subjective, and that's definitely marginal gains. I think there's probably more comparisons to, say, like the hi-fi world. Like, you can probably get a pretty decent hi-fi. I don't know anything about hi-fis, but you can probably get a pretty decent hi-fi for a good budget. But then the expensive hi-fis have this more fidelity, but it's marginal gains. I think that's where we're getting to with these wheelbases. It does also have this telemetry. It didn't always work for me. It worked a little bit. I couldn't quite work it out. I don't think it worked full stop in Lemon Ultimate, but my screen's never worked in Lemon Ultimate anyway. It worked a bit in iRacing, and it worked a little bit in Asetek Evo, but I couldn't work it out. So some software integration to be done then. I would say the main thing is I can't really see these strips when I'm sat in my rig. And if anyone tells you that these are massive game changers, I am cynical, because when you're sat there with a wheel, I can't see them. I feel like maybe the Asetek Invicta is a bit longer and the strips are a bit longer, so I can actually kind of see them a little bit better. But I've also said with the Asetek's, like the RGB and the Invicta pedals, like you can't see it when your foot's there. So that's amazing for streamers, basically. When you're streaming, you can have all this stuff. Maybe I can have like donation alerts and subscriber alerts come through it. But I wouldn't buy this wheelbase on the RGB alone. And I'm someone that actually quite likes gimmicks. I like things like this. But I'm telling you honestly, like, you're not going to notice it. And if you're already someone who's like, oh, I wouldn't really use a screen, you're definitely not going to use that. But otherwise, very serious wheelbase for $900. I just want to re-emphasize the point I made about safety. Please, please, please genuinely be safe if you're buying wheelbases like this. I would recommend, it's not even necessarily the emergency stop, but I would just don't run this at 100% and 100% in sim. You know, it really can break your wrist. And I don't even do it as a laugh. Like, I could do it for content, like 100% challenge. No, I race, you know, I do karting. I value my wrist quite a lot. So even I'm not doing it, and I could do it for the laugh. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this review, this video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to help me out. You guys and girls are just the best. Thank you so much. And there'll be some more videos around here, and I'll see you next time.